What's up guys, this is Shivam from Team Zion and let's talk about consensus mechanisms. Now consensus guys is exactly what it means in blockchain terms as well. It's basically a way to come to a conclusion about a certain transaction or certain amount of data or certain type of data that's going to be written onto the blockchain. Now consensus mechanisms, however, are varied in the blockchain ecosystem. Centralized blockchains, they use a different thing as compared to decentralized mechanisms. So when we talk about decentralized or rather completely decentralized ecosystems, the leader in the space is Bitcoin, and Bitcoin uses a consensus mechanism called proof of work. And guys, proof of work is again exactly what it means. It's proof of work done. So various nodes in the ecosystem, they need to perform certain calculations. So usually they need to use the hash, come out to an answer, and that answer is then compared to another number. Depending on if it's higher or lower, it gets rejected or it gets accepted. And if it gets accepted, the block then goes onto the chain. If it gets rejected, the node on the computers, they have to go back and do the calculation once again and try to come out with an answer that is lower than the target number. Now that is basically what proof of work means, but this also means it requires energy, which is usually electricity, because the computer has to perform multiple calculations to come to a conclusion, and that kind of more or less means proof of work. The second most widely used consensus mechanism in blockchain is proof of stake mechanism, and it depends on the stake that I have in the network. So what I need to do is I need to lock the coins in a specific network in order to validate certain blocks. So let's say we are talking about either Cardano or in this case the new Ethereum that's going to be here pretty soon. And depending on when you're watching this video, by the way, right? Let's talk about Ethereum, right? If I put my, or if I lock 32 Ethereum, I get to validate blocks. But those validation of those blocks does not, of course, it depends on if I have staked enough, but that's a random process. So amidst all of the people who have staked their crypto or staked their crypto coins into the network, random validators are going to be picked up, and those validators get a chance to mine the block. And what this does is it replaces the proof of work energy based system as a consensus mechanism into a stake based mechanism. Now, of course, there are pros and there are cons of this system. An obvious pro is you don't burn as much energy as you would if it was a proof of work network. But also another pro could be very well, in order to perform a mass attack that I had mentioned earlier in the blockchain video, you'll have to own 51% of the staked crypto. And it's going to be very difficult and very expensive to do that. But here's another kicker. You can still, with proof of work networks, have the computational power, manipulate the network and get away with it in theory. But in proof of stake ecosystem, all those bad actors, people who are trying to manipulate the system, they get slashed. Now, what does slashed mean? It basically means the stake I had with the network, it gets destroyed, or part of it gets destroyed. Now, a lot of networks, they have different ways to do that. Some networks like Phantom, they have a different way. Some networks like Cardano, they have a different way. So some networks would slash everything, right? If you're trying to do some kind of a malpractice there, all of your staked crypto is gone. It's considered gone. A lot of other things, they'll have like a 10% slash. Let's say you staked 100 Ethereum and 10 of your Ethereum are wasted because you tried to manipulate the chain. And that makes it relatively secure because there is also a tangible loss. Because in case of a computational problem, the only loss I have is kind of the cost into the ecosystem that I might have built in order to manipulate the network. But in this case, I also lose a ton of money because my stake gets slashed. So it's pretty interesting to see how proof of stake works or compares to proof of work. Now, are these the only two consensus mechanisms in the market? Pretty much no. There is Solana, which is proof of history. We have proof of time. We have proof of time spent. We also have proof of work in terms of, let's say, something like Stepin, where you walk and you get paid, right? Stuff like that. But you also have other chains that provide other interesting, very, very interesting ways of consensus mechanism. So proof of game played and stuff like that. You can pretty much imagine a scenario where a certain action can be used as a proof of doing something or proof of interacting with the network, and that can be rewarded, or rather that person can be rewarded as somebody who gets to mint the block, right? So you can just check out multiple other sources that we are going to link about this in the description below as well. This whole ecosystem of consensus mechanisms is very, very exciting and more or less sometimes kind of very interesting as well to see what people are coming up with. So that's it, guys. This is this video. I'll see you guys in the next.